calculated expectations and objectives are not met. So I think it's reasonable to expect that stakeholders be willing to do this. Now, of course, we do have to respect their time in this process. This can't be something that just becomes a half-day bowl session where you're just sitting around shooting the breeze with them. This needs to be focused on half hour or an hour of focused time of it. What's the objectives? What are the expectations? Now, let's talk a little bit about these effectiveness, efficiency, and elegance. So effectiveness means that you satisfy the objectives and expectations. So whatever objective they have, you are satisfying it to some extent, and we're going to talk in a minute about to what extent, what that means. Now, one can be effective while also being inefficient. If you do things very slowly and with a lot of resource and a lot of money and a lot of effort, that's maybe you get the job done, but maybe it's not very efficient. Now, obviously, there is some tension between efficiency and effectiveness. One, maximizing efficiency can certainly decrease effectiveness, and this is something I want to stress that you need to typically prioritize effectiveness over efficiency. But efficiency is not an immaterial consideration. Efficiency is definitely a material consideration in almost any situation. People do care how much it costs. They care how long it takes. They care how much resources involved. And so it's something that we need to think about. So we got to be effective and we got to be efficient. Now, those two things might sound like enough by themselves, but over the years I've come to realize that they're really not, that you need a third piece here, which is elegance. Now, I choose elegance as a word, just fairly well understood word. Maybe you might like something that sounds a little less, glamorous or something. But basically, when I'm talking about elegance here, what I'm talking about is that not only are we effective and efficient, because certainly somebody who is not effective and efficient is not doing elegant work. But somebody could be effective and efficient, but they do their work in a way that no one likes to watch. There's the old joke about those who respect the law and enjoy eating sausage should never watch either being made. So the inference there is that politics and sausage making are both inherently inelegant processes that are not pleasing to observe, even if they are effective at churning out a necessary or tasty product. So elegance means that people observing your work come away with an impression that you are competent, that you are graceful, that the work is all well managed and well executed, and there's not a lot of flailing around or confusion. And so think about those things too. Ultimately, that's as important, harder to measure without a doubt. You have to get into things like satisfaction surveys and so forth, and ask people questions about their perceptions about how you do your work and how it looks from the outside. But don't forget about that. We have seen instances with our clients where there were teams that were quite effective and quite efficient in reality, but perception was that they were not at all, and so this was a sort of an elegance issue, among other things. Okay, now divergence and conflict. Whoops, what's supposed to happen? There we go. This really does matter. For those of you who are kind of scratching your heads, going, well, how big of a deal is this? There's significant divergence that happens in situations where there has not been a meeting of the minds about what it is that the test team is there to do and what it would mean to be effective, efficient, and elegant in the doing of it. So here is an example. Now, one of the things is a dysfunction that we sometimes see with test teams is that testers and the test managers are all completely focused on finding bugs. And it's all about the bug count, bug count, bug count, bug count. Now, obviously, for many stakeholders, bug finding is going to be a key objective for the test team. So I'm not denigrating the importance of bug finding here, but also need to make sure that we're not looking at this as the sole objective to be pursued in complete abandonment of anything else. And certainly there is a point at which going off, spelunking around looking for every last possible bug, no matter how unlikely or unimportant, starts to become a problem when it's done to the exclusion of other work, other objectives that are also considered important by the outside stakeholders. This gets to a real crescendo, and not a happy crescendo, a sad crescendo, when you see test managers starting to reward testers based on bug counts. This is a classic worst practice of test management. There might be certain circumstances under which this makes sense. I'm certainly happy to accept that. Sometimes this makes sense, but more often than not, getting out of the realm of hypothetical, can you imagine a situation in which this might make sense? Yeah, I can imagine a situation where I would live on a diet of mice and rattlesnakes too, but I'm not exactly mainstream situation. Most of the time where we have seen this happening in organizations where test managers are rewarding and giving bonuses based on bug counts and so forth, and the testers are just totally bug finding frenzy to the exclusion of any other work, the outside stakeholders perceive the testing as a very, very broken process, and they are not at all satisfied. The common perception is of these teams that are very much bug focused is that the testing is very antagonistic in the sense that bugs are reported almost in a sort of a gotcha kind of mode, that people come to take delight and glee in the reporting of bugs to the developers who they believe created the bugs. Of course, that's never appreciated. That kind of relationship is seen as disruptive and ultimately obstructive to the goals of the organization, and so conflict occurs, and obviously as test execution goes along, the conflict gets more and more intense. The conflict results in distractions, which then mean that we don't achieve goals on the project as a whole. So things go into production late. And ironically, often more bugs than would actually have to be the case. So jamming the bug tracking database full of a ton of bug reports, including ones that aren't very important, is actually not a very good strategy to get quality increased. You'd think that might be like the squeaky wheel gets the grease, but it actually doesn't. You end up having a lot of bugs that get deferred, and stuff gets lost in the shuffle that really does matter, and relationships start to break down. So this really is important. You want to work with the stakeholders to understand their objectives and expectations, not just so that you can be a